Hello, and welcome to How to Work Productively with Your Publisher. Investigate, collaborate, communicate. My name is Sean Wakely, and I'm Vice President of Product and Editorial at FlatWorld. FlatWorld is a high quality, affordable price publisher with a mission to bring textbook prices back down to earth. So let's get started. So, how to work productively with your publisher. That is could we go in a lot of different directions with that particular topic. I chose probably because I'm working with a project right now. I chose the subtitle Investigate, Collaborate, Communicate because I think it really represents the interactions I'm having with those authors who are considering coming and working with FlatWorld. And we're in the investigation stage in a major way right now. They're trying to determine a lot of information about how FlatWorld's digital products work and how the videos that they have produced themselves could become an important part of that customer experience inside the FlatWorld digital reader. So we're definitely in the investigation stage. We're moving into the collaboration stage, and communication is kind of happening all around. So let's talk about, let's expand on these three particular elements in the author editor relationship, author publisher relationship, and see what that brings us. So first of all, investigate. It's important to remember that publishers and authors win when we identify the problems that faculty are facing and solve them. And sometimes the competitors are already doing that. And sometimes the publisher is already doing that as part of other products that they offer in similar areas or even unrelated areas. But essentially, we win when we make people's lives more efficient, if we make faculty and students respective roles more productive. Faculty become better and more efficient teachers, and if students actually reach learning objectives more quickly and more thoroughly. So I think it's really important, whether you're writing a first edition or a revision, to use that sense of curiosity that brought you as an author into the academic kind of environment in the first place, and make a great effort to break out of just kind of how things happen in your own classroom and how maybe you've been doing it. Talk to other faculty at conferences in your own departments, and try to figure out what problems they're trying to solve. Um, One of the most important things that you can do is just pick two or three competitors that you think and your publisher have targeted as the most likely books that they'll be taking market share away from, that they'll be taking adoptions away from. See what those competitors are doing, not so that you can actually copy them. That's not the point. The point is to see what are they doing in common that your customers or your future customers are expecting you to be able to fulfill in order to be able to adopt your book. So, for example, there's a very standard table of contents for many books especially in the basic courses, and a certain scope and sequence. And it's important to do a benchmark or comparison to where all the competitors are covering which topics and doing them kind of in a consistent flow. That doesn't mean that you actually have to do it exactly that way, but frankly, if you don't, it's going to be a hard struggle to get faculty to take the effort to move to a completely different way of teaching the course. There's still a lot of creative things that you can do in a standard table of contents, and you can actually move a few things around that would represent your particular take and theme on that particular course. Your publisher's capabilities are important because it doesn't make any sense for you to create a book that requires the publisher to have a certain, let's say, digital strategy that is required. So the book that I mentioned up front, the publisher that these authors have worked with was not able to marry or integrate the videos into the electronic book, the electronic product. And so what was happening was that the author's vision of a unified, integrated experience between the narrative and the videos was not being realized, and it was not being successful. That the vision was not for people to work with these different components in very separate ways, but to use them in one working interface. Which is why they investigated the situation, found that FlatWorld was able to accomplish that goal, and why we're having that conversation now. So what I'm doing with the author team that I mentioned is we're mapping out a plan together next week. They're going to demonstrate the videos that they've created for me so I can really understand what's going on in them. And then we'll figure out how to basically um, place them in the book, in what sequence. So for example, the videos in this case are created in such a way that the beginning sets up a challenge or a problem that a particular interviewee was facing. And then there is how that person being interviewed actually addressed the challenge or problem. And so maybe we want to stop that video, and maybe we want to place the solution part a little later in the chapter. Maybe we want to make that part of the homework, digital homework product, and make it kind of a question answer grading situation, maybe a little bit of both. But next week, we're going to be sitting down to figure that out on a Zoom conference. Um, the collaboration around a book in college publishing, it's really important to figure out if you're on the same page regarding the schedule. Um, the Many books actually end up failing simply because they never get written. And having a written schedule, in my opinion, is the key to successful collaboration and a successful publication. I always create a written schedule for my authors that it's in a Word document, and it essentially batches the first edition manuscript into 3 or 4 groups of chapters with due dates, and then I put on the revision schedule following peer reviews. So we have a great rolling schedule. As it turns out, things change, and you have to course correct. People actually end up getting a sabbatical, so maybe things can accelerate, or someone actually takes on the department chair role and has to slow down. The collaboration is really important in that respect, to let your publisher know what's changing. And that Microsoft Word document I mentioned a second ago, they always change, and I use the Microsoft Word tracking tool, send it to the author and say, tell me how you think it's going to change, and then we just basically collaborate on what the schedule looks like based on those new circumstances. And it's that kind of collaboration, I think that's really important to keep in mind. Let your publisher know about changes beforehand. That's the communication piece of collaboration. It doesn't do a lot of good for me to know that the manuscript batch I was supposed to get next week is now going to be next month. I may have already lined up reviewers. In fact, I wish I actually would line up reviewers in advance more often based on schedules, but that can be kind of risky unless you have a really good relationship and you know that the author is going to meet the deadlines. And I think touching base regularly is really important. And it's not only emailing each other when you need something; it's just touching base and continuing to maintain that relationship aside from a transaction, and only emailing each other again when you need something. Ask for feedback. Writing is a lonely business, and even if you're in a co-author situation, oftentimes co-authors work very separately and only collaborate on a very specific timetable. So your editor is your writing partner in many ways, and asking for feedback is not only expected; it's actually really valued by a lot of editors. But oftentimes you do need to initiate. Publishers are managing many, many different authors, and time can slip by. So don't ever be hesitant to communicate again, to touch base, to ask feedback, and definitely let your publisher know about changes beforehand. And so if you as authors and creators keep in mind this whole idea of being curious, to investigate, to be very conscious about collaborating with your editor and publishing partners in meaningful ways, and then communicating all the way, all along the way about those collaborations and updating them, and not only with schedules but with new ideas, you'll be a very successful author, and you and your publisher will have a great relationship. So thanks for listening. I would like to say at the very end, my little commercial plug. that if you are a college textbook author or academic who is teaching a course and would like to write a book for a course that you're very familiar with, please drop me a line. It's just sean.wakely@flatworld.com. Let me know what you're thinking about writing, and we can have a conversation about if it fits with FlatWorld's publishing plans. We're publishing in business and economics, in many of the social sciences, in certain of the math and natural sciences areas as well. So if you're talking about a book that is in our publishing plan, I'd love to have a further conversation.